Have you ever experienced a moment so powerful that it feels like your heart remembers it before your mind does? Like suddenly being transported back to another era, another version of yourself, another feeling you thought was gone forever? Because that's what happened to thousands of fans at Stanford Stadium when Jimin stepped onto the stage and accidentally unleashed one of the biggest emotional explosions the BTS fandom has seen in years. And the terrifying thing, nobody was prepared for how hard it would hit, not even the fans who thought they already knew him. Because somehow, in 2026, Jimin brought back the magic of blood, sweat, and tears, and made it even more devastating than it was in 2016. Think about that for a second. We're talking about one of the most iconic eras in K-pop history. An era that changed careers, changed fandom culture, changed the entire global perception of BTS. Back then, Blood, Sweat and Tears wasn't just a song. It was an awakening. And for millions of people around the world, one person stood at the center of that awakening. Jimin. The eyes, the elegance, the impossible fluidity in every movement. The way he could look delicate one second and dangerously charismatic the next. People didn't just watch him. They became obsessed with trying to understand him. That's why fans started calling him the fan-attracting fairy. Because over and over again, people entered the BTS universe because of one performance clip. One expression. One moment from Jimin. And 10 years later, he did it again. During BTS's World Tour Arirang concerts at Stanford Stadium, fans already knew the atmosphere would be emotional. After all, seeing BTS together on stage again already felt historic. But Jimin somehow turned the entire weekend into something unforgettable. For 3 straight nights, he walked onto that stage like a completely different character each time. Different hairstyles, different vibes, different energies. One night he looked soft and angelic. The next night he looked almost untouchably elegant. Then suddenly he'd appear with that dangerous confidence that makes the entire crowd lose control before he even says a word. And fans noticed everything. Every glance, every smile, every tiny movement. Because that's the thing about Jimin. He doesn't perform like someone simply dancing to music. He performs like someone telling secrets with his body. Even people who don't understand choreography can feel something when they watch him. And then came the moment that shattered the stadium, the impromptu Blood, Sweat, and Tears performance. The second the music started, you could hear the crowd changing. Not just screaming, panicking. Because fans instantly realized what they were seeing. This wasn't just a small callback. This wasn't just nostalgia for fun. For a few minutes, it genuinely felt like 2016 had returned. Except this version of Jimin was even more powerful. Back in 2016, his charm came from mystery. He felt almost unreal, like a beautiful character that existed somewhere between innocence and temptation. But 2026 Jimin? That version carries experience, confidence, control. He knows exactly what kind of effect he has on people now. And somehow that awareness made every movement more dangerous. Fans online started saying things like, "He doesn't age, he evolves." Others admitted they felt like new fans all over again. Some literally said they forgot how to breathe watching the clips. And honestly, the craziest part is that the performance wasn't even planned as some giant career-defining moment. That's just the effect Jimin naturally has. One spontaneous performance, and suddenly the entire internet is emotionally collapsing. Clips spread across social media at lightning speed. People who hadn't followed BTS in years suddenly started reposting Stanford videos. Old fans returned, new fans appeared overnight, and once again the same sentence started flooding timelines everywhere. Once you Jim in, you can't Jim out. At this point, that slogan has basically become fandom law. Because the pattern keeps repeating itself for years. Someone says they're just casually checking out BTS. Then they see Jimin perform once, and suddenly they're watching 2-hour compilations at 3 a.m., wondering what happened to their life. Even inside the stadium, the signs held by fans told the whole story. During ARMY time, cameras captured banner after banner dedicated specifically to Jimin. Some referenced Jimerica, the nickname fans used to describe his insane popularity in the United States. And honestly, the nickname exists for a reason. Because American audiences react to Jimin in a way that almost feels uncontrollable. The second he appears on screen, the noise level changes completely. There's this electricity around him that's difficult to explain unless you witness it yourself. And then there were the funny banners, too. Fans even referenced his viral appearance connected to comedian Lee Soo-ji's Rendezvous Beauty Salon, proving that people aren't only obsessed with his beauty and performances, they're attached to his personality, too. That duality is part of what makes Jimin so addictive. One moment he looks like the most elegant person alive. The next moment he's unintentionally hilarious and completely chaotic. And fans love that contrast. But while Stanford was emotionally destroying fans in person, something equally shocking was happening online. Because at almost the exact same time, Jimin achieved one of the biggest streaming milestones ever reached by a Korean solo artist. His album MUSE officially surpassed 4 billion streams on Spotify. Not group streams, not combined artist streams, one Korean solo album, 4 billion. And what makes this achievement even crazier is how fast it happened. Only 668 days after release. That officially made it the fastest Korean language album ever to reach that milestone. First, and only. Those two words keep following Jimin everywhere now. First Korean solo artist, only Korean solo album, first Billboard achievement, only streaming record. It's becoming impossible to talk about modern K-pop history without his name appearing somewhere in it. And fans became even more emotional when they realized something deeper about these numbers. Most of Jimin's streaming success came without relying on giant Western artist collaborations. This wasn't about borrowing someone else's audience. This wasn't about temporary hype. People genuinely returned to his music over and over again. His Spotify profile surpassed 6.8 billion solo streams from only 22 solo tracks. That means millions of listeners are repeatedly choosing Jimin's voice, Jimin's emotions, Jimin's artistry. And two songs especially became symbols of that impact. Who and Like Crazy. Who stayed on Billboard's Hot 100 for 33 weeks during his military service. Think about how insane that is. An artist physically absent from promotions still dominating one of the hardest music charts in the world. Meanwhile, Like Crazy already cemented itself into history by becoming the first Billboard Hot 100 #1 song by a Korean solo artist. And even now, years later, people are still streaming it obsessively. Why? Because Jimin's music hits differently emotionally. There's always this strange vulnerability in his voice. Even when the songs are polished pop tracks, there's pain underneath them. Longing, loneliness, desperation, hope. You don't just hear Jimin songs, you feel them. And maybe that's why Stanford became such an emotional event overall. Fans weren't just seeing a celebrity perform, they were witnessing every version of Jimin existing at once. The young man who once shocked the world during Blood, Sweat, and Tears. The global icon selling out stadiums. The solo artist breaking impossible Spotify records. The emotional vocalist whose songs comfort millions of people. The playful, chaotic personality fans adore off stage. All of those versions stood under the same lights at Stanford Stadium. And for many fans, it felt overwhelming realizing how far he has come. Because the truth is, very few artists survive a decade at the top while still making people feel new emotions. Usually audiences move on, usually the magic fades, usually people become numb to fame. But with Jimin, something keeps growing stronger. His stage presence feels deeper, his artistry feels more personal. And somehow, even after all these years, fans still react to him with the exact same intensity they did in 2016. Maybe even more. And honestly, that might be the most extraordinary thing about him. Not the records, not the streams, not even the sold-out stadiums. It's the fact that after 10 years, one look from Jimin can still make millions of people feel completely weak. Which explains why fans left Stanford saying the exact same thing over and over again. Once you Jimin, you truly can't Jim out.